Hello, everyone. Welcome to Work Ready Networking for Job Seekers. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for LA County Library, and I welcome you to our Work Ready event. Work Ready began in December of 2020 as a response to the COVID pandemic and how it's affected workers. The purpose of Work Ready is to help those affected by COVID get a job or improve your work situation. And by improve your current work situation, we mean get a raise or just plan a more sustainable career path. And we're helping you do that in three ways. Number one, we're lending out laptops out of 20 library locations. And that's laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots. So you have a computer and internet access out of 20 library locations, and you get those for 6 weeks at a time. So if you need to do interviews, if you need to do some training to get better at work, we've got the laptops and we've got the internet access for you. In order to get those laptops, you just need to go to our website, lacountylibrary.org, scroll down to Work Ready. It should be right in the middle of the screen. Click on that, and then scroll down a little bit and click Laptop Availability, and you'll see a screen with the different libraries that have laptops available. If you're going to go right away, you can pick up a laptop, no strings attached. If you think you might be there in a few days, go ahead and give that library a call and they can put that laptop on reserve for you. They'll put on will call and you can pick it up when you're able. The second way we're helping folks with work is by having live events just like this one on a variety of work-related topics, as well as pre-recorded videos, which we post on our YouTube channel. By the way, we also post these programs on the YouTube channel. So almost every Work Ready program we've had has been posted on our channel, and this one will be there either later on this week or early next week. And the third way that we help folks with job searches is by buying the latest and greatest work-related books, ebooks, audiobooks. So whether you want to put an item on hold and go pick it up at your local library, or you want to go to our Overdrive playlist and either check out an ebook or audiobook and read it in the comfort of your computer without even leaving your chair, we give you the option to do that. And that's the Work Ready program. And now I would like to introduce to you our speaker for today. Karen Wickray has been called the best connected Silicon Valley figure you've never heard of. She has worked for 30 years in technology businesses as a writer, editor, and communications pro, and with long stints at Google and Twitter. Her avocation is connecting people, which led her to write Taking the Work Out of Networking in 2018. The opposite of someone who works the room, Karen skips late night parties and conferences in favor of connecting with friends and strangers from the comfort of her laptop. Karen lives in San Francisco and has 2 degrees in liberal arts, knowledge from which she uses every day. She's at KVox on Twitter, and she's here with us today. And I'd love to welcome to the virtual stage, Karen Wickray.
Thank you again, everybody, and hello. I hope you like animals because you're going to see a lot of them in this presentation. A friend of mine joked that for the kind of eat your vegetables message that I might be imparting, I'm making it a little easier with animal photos. So let me start by saying people of all kinds, introverts, extroverts, everybody in between, has told me they hate having to network. It's one of the least desirable tasks they have to do. It does feel like eating your vegetables. And the the word itself, oops, why it's not returning. Sorry. Sorry, it's not advancing. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. The word itself is an awful word, networking, and I wish we could uh, just dismiss it entirely in favor of something like connecting. And people have this reaction when someone says, well, you have to go network, right? It feels phony. It feels very transactional, and very superficial, that everybody is in on the secret that we are just kind of trying to do a tit for tat thing. And having to network also triggers an image of you being alone in a crowd. Everyone else is in on whatever the information is, whatever the leads are. Everybody else knows other people and you don't. And you think, I'm all alone here. Everyone else has figured it out. If you're at a networking event, or if you're at a job fair or something like that. But the fact is, we all feel that way when we don't know where to turn for answers. And we tend to therefore avoid the chore of networking until we have to meet people. We have to find a new job. We want to break into a new field. We want to find a school program to go to. And then we sort of feel forced out there when we're feeling kind of our neediest. But the fact is, these days, and maybe this makes it a little easier, is we have to work on our muscles for networking, because the need to network is really not just about finding the one job and then forgetting about it. The need to network is now continuous. And there are three reasons why. One is, we've all experienced this. We change jobs more frequently than ever before. You know, the idea of having a job for the entirety of your career is a thing of the long ago past at this point. The average today, according to LinkedIn, is over the course of a career, people hold 12 to 15 jobs, and sometimes many more. Another phenomenon that's going on is more of us are working independently than ever before. There are more than 40 million self-employed Americans. There are 15.5 million independent workers. And again, that's growing because either we want to piece together or have to piece together part-time work or consulting projects. And so, therefore, the need to continue to meet people and have them know about our skills and interests is continuous. And the third reason is we're all working longer, we're going to work longer, uh, and staying in the workforce longer. In as recently as 2018, Americans 55 and up made up half of the employment gains in the U.S. We don't want to be idle necessarily when we get older, and frankly, sometimes we cannot afford to be. So these are reasons why it's more important than ever to build up that muscle of connecting with people and staying in touch with them over time, because there's a lot of benefit that we will continue to have in doing this. Do not think about it as simply, I have to go, through the motions here to find a job, and then I can, thank God, be done with this, because that's just not how it works. Something I want to suggest to you is that the what you bring to a job is the network that you have. It's part of your currency. Uh, think of it as something, the web of contacts that you have as currency that you build and that you save and that you spend wisely. In other words, it's the opposite of transacting with people, right? We might know this intuitively. This might be how we act, but the notion of networking still has a bad old stereotype. So I think there is a better way based on this idea of networking. Really, I didn't get into the technology business until I was 35. And as Oleg mentioned, I'm a liberal arts grad all the way and happy for it. And yet I've enjoyed a long career in Silicon Valley. And today I consult with many businesses and tech companies. I have an active network of friends and colleagues and allies. And there's a lot of give and get that goes on with that network, just as there is with your Iditarod team, your team of dogs, right? Um, so I've learned three things in working in tech for so long. One is it's okay to reinvent yourself. Absolutely. Things move so fast in the technology world that you couldn't hang your hat on one technology or one uh, kind of innovation and stick with it for more than a few years because things are going to continue to move. So it's absolutely okay to reinvent yourself. People do it all the time. And frankly, you're given credit for it. Another thing is it's really okay to move around between jobs. And it's a norm now in a lot of places for the reasons I've already mentioned. But I noticed it first in the early years in the 80s when I started out in tech businesses. I saw how frequently people moved because there were new opportunities and new business models and new kinds of companies and so on. And so you kind of take your contacts and your network with you, as it were, and continue to build it that way. So this is my, when I was writing the book, I came across this quote and I've really kind of worked it to death, but I do love it. And I would encourage you to think about reframing your notion of networking into this. And if you're a gardener, all the better. Think about gardening instead of farming. But the idea here is farming or gardening are much more of a continuous seasonal process. They do not require 7 days a week. They do not require, 24/7 kind of attention, but they're ongoing and they're seasonal. And sometimes you're planting and sometimes you're weeding, if you get the idea. Whereas hunting, let's face it, is pretty transactional. And there's kind of a one and done situation, and somebody is a winner and somebody is a loser. So if you can frame your thoughts about making attempts at connecting with people and networking more about gardening or farming, you're going to be better off in the long run. It's going to make it maybe a little more palatable. Another thing about making connections with people uh, is that you can become smarter because of the people that you meet. I don't have to know everything about every subject or every company or every kind of degree program or anything else, every technology. If I have people around to ask, can you explain this to me? Can you help me with this? Can you help me brainstorm about this? So when you know more people on a sort of friendly, ongoing basis, which is not constant, but just casual and intermittent, the smarter you will be, the smarter they will be, and it's a very enriching process. And by the way, this is not the same as making into your network everyone you've ever met or ever worked with. It's really focusing on the people that you like, that you've enjoyed working with, that you have some rapport with, that you are interesting to you, that you'd like to know more about. It's not who you're supposed to meet, right? It's people that you like, who can make you smarter about a thing, just as you can do with them. Another important principle, I think, of networking in general is that it requires you to be open to new people. Again, not every day, not every hour, but on those occasions when you want to know more about something that you don't know, when you want an answer, you want an introduction. Being open to meeting new people does build empathy. You hear a new story because you make a little small talk when you get to know someone new, and you come away with finding some common ground. You might be inspired by what you hear. You're, appreciative of their kindness, and you want to do the same. So it's a very wonderful kind of pay it forward situation. Um, because remember, everybody has questions. Everybody needs someone else to help them make that connection, get that introduction, find out more about an opportunity. We all need it. We all take turns needing it. And so perhaps keep this image in mind, which is one of my favorites. You'll feel less alone. So here are some kind of three key elements to making the principles I've just talked about real. One is I'm a big believer in having live conversations. Now, these days, live does not have to mean in person. A virtual, a video coffee chat is good. I do like face to face, though, as opposed to just on the phone, although on the phone can work. But when you're getting to know someone or catching up with someone from the past, having just a bit of time to say, especially now, how are you? How have you been during the pandemic? What's going on with you? What are you finding? What are you thinking about now? It's kind of a perfect opportunity to have that kind of door opening conversation with a long lost acquaintance or a brand new acquaintance, either one. But at some point, face to face is really important, no matter how much virtual conversation or Slack channels or email has been going on. It helps cement the connection between humans. When you are meeting either someone new or someone you haven't been in touch with in a while, be clear on what you're looking for. If you're asking for, can I have 20 minutes of your time? Could we schedule coffee next week? This is what I'm asking about. Now, it can be, I just want to catch up with you, but even then, the context might be, I want to hear about your job. I want to hear about the company you're working for because I'm interested in that company. I'd like to get your advice on this job description I've just seen, whatever it is. Have some, let the other person prepare a little bit mentally for what you're looking for. The whole conversation doesn't have to be about that, but you want to uh, give that person a reason to say yes. And the reason is, this is specifically what I'm looking for from you. Frankly, people think it's flattering and they want to help again. But be sure you've added a little bit of context for that initial get acquainted request. And then I can't emphasize this enough. I know if people think about networking, they think it's a transaction they have to get in and out of, or that they don't want to bother somebody. I hear this a lot, by the way, from people who say, I don't want to take their time. They're too important. And so it makes you kind of, if you feel that way, it makes you kind of stiffen up and you want to run down your list of questions and get out as soon as you can because, you've taken their important, valuable time. If you can, try to get past that because we all like making connections. We all like hearing, from another vantage point, from another story. So to the extent that you can be personal and personable with someone who you may think is more important or busier than you or is doing you a favor, it really helps as kind of a social lubricant. And just to, you know, eh, people like a little flattery if you're asking, but you'll quickly find some common ground, whether it's sports teams or a hometown or something else. Um, it's a quality that people like, and you're going to be remembered more because you've had a few minutes of kind of personal talk, even on a professional call. I love this. I love this picture too. So this is for those of you who are maybe in a job now and you wonder about another opportunity in another part of the organization, or someone who has an interesting background you'd like to know more about. Take the time, even with your current work colleagues, to get to know them a little bit personally, especially if you don't know them well, if you work on different teams. The same thing applies, have a coffee date just to talk about other stuff, just to get to know each other. How's their team working? What part of the business are they in? It makes you smarter, and again, you have a little bit more of a personal connection with someone, which can help if you ever are thinking about changing jobs within an organization. That can make a big difference. And that personal tie really can set you up for a positive outcome and being more memorable to someone within an organization. So it works whether or not you're on the outside or inside, but you're kind of looking around and interested. Another rule I have related to this, and you won't be surprised to hear it, is I always say default to yes. And this is about when you're offered an introduction. A friend of yours says, you know what, I know someone that you need to talk to about this opportunity, or someone who might know something more, or simply, this is someone I want you to meet because you two remind me of each other, or you have similar backgrounds. Just say yes. You don't have to say yes for it has to be tomorrow, or, here's a deadline to the yes, but you want to be inclined to be open to meeting new people, whatever, however casual or slight that introduction might be, because you just don't know where that conversation might lead. If you do have a need at a specific question, meeting one person isn't necessarily going to give you the entire answer that you want, but they will offer a valuable piece of the puzzle, even if it's to say, you know what, I would never work for that company. That is valuable information. And if you didn't say yes to that meeting, you might not know that, but now you know more. And by the way, saying yes doesn't tie up your calendar. It doesn't mean you're obligated to a lot of either video calls or lunch dates or breakfast dates or whatever. Yes can be, in 3 weeks I'd like to talk to you, or is there a better time that we could do this as a call rather than meeting in person, which these days I think a lot of people would find easier to do. So this is what I think is maybe I've hinted at this, perhaps this is what I think is the secret to building a web of contacts, a network that you can use throughout your life. It's keeping a loose touch with people. Uh, this is for people that you already know, or maybe you only know slightly. And it's just my phrase for describing why it's loose is it's not constant. It's not like you have to check in with someone every week or even every month, and indeed even every year. But the fact that it doesn't require a lot of time and effort makes it easier to stay in touch with a lot of people and have a sense of what's going on with them. And these days, by the way, we have so many digital, tools and accesses to make with people that it's very easy to send a quick note or message that says, hey, I haven't heard from you. I'm just saying, hey, how are you? I've been thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. Or I saw something I'm passing this on to you. It's an article, it's a cartoon, it's a headline. This made me think of you. How are you doing? Now, that doesn't require a meeting or a call or an answer. You might get one and someone will say, hey, I've been thinking about you too. Thank you for this. If you want a specific time with someone, you can be specific about it and say, I'd really like to find time with you. How's your next week looking, or whatever. But this way, you could be in touch with a lot of people, way more than you could by, say, making phone calls, even if you work down a phone list. Because I do this as sort of a warm up for my day each day. Is who's top of mind for me today? Who did I just see something about in the news, that their company was in the news? What did they think about this story? That immediately, I just send off a few notes, either email, or I use Twitter a lot, so I use Twitter direct messages, or text, or whatever it takes, LinkedIn, and I just say, hey, thinking of you. So that's what loose touch is about. uh, and it's a moment where you are top of mind to someone else, and they say, hey, you know what, I've been thinking about you too. Now, as I just have said, it's never been easier to stay in touch. And I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, which I will say a little more about here, because for people who are in a professional realm looking for jobs, looking for career development, I mean, it was designed for this, and it has all these years worked really well at staying focused on that exact thing, being a professional service. Um, it People think of it as just for a job search, but the fact is, if you're connected to people that you used to work with, that who have maybe you were a vendor or contractor, or they were, or a consultant. People that you like, though, again, not everyone you've ever come across in life, but just people that you have a good sense about and want to stay in touch with. That's a good basis for your LinkedIn network. And also then you can follow people who are, thought leaders in a field, or companies that you're interested in as well. And that's a nice set of contacts to have who shouldn't ideally overwhelm you. So when you see a notification, one of your contacts got a new job, or has a new title or something like that, that's the time to send that little note. Hey, congratulations, thinking of you. And if you want to make a connection with someone, my best advice on LinkedIn is don't just use the canned LinkedIn language that they provide you. Make your own personal message to say, here's why I would like to be connected to you. I read this about you. I'm interested in your story. I'd like to know more about how you got into this field. That's why I want a connection to you. And that personal context gives people a little bit more reason to say yes. And then you can have some exchange on LinkedIn or off, depending on what it is. I would also advise that you check your own LinkedIn profile at least quarterly and update it there. Keep an eye on it, because even if you're not specifically looking for a job right now, I can tell you that recruiters live on LinkedIn. They're all over it all the time. And they're looking, and other people are, it's a directory of people. And so people are looking for, speakers or writers or subject matter expertise, or, board members or volunteers of some sort. So LinkedIn is really the best for all of those things, and it's why you should keep it up. Don't neglect it. Um, let's see now. Okay, so how do I begin? You might say there's a lot of things we've talked about here. How do I begin? So I suggest, if you're feeling a little rusty in these areas, or maybe just starting to think, framing your thinking about networking in this way. Um, here are three things you can do. Send a loose touch message to three of your weak ties. Weak ties are people you're not directly in touch with very often, or they are someone from your past professional life, past work experience, or even personal experience. But basically, the message is, hey, I've been thinking about you because I wonder how you've been doing this past year. I wonder about how you're liking your new job, about where you've moved to. I'd, I'd, I'd love to hear more. Just, I want to say hi because I've always enjoyed you. That's the message. And don't necessarily expect an immediate response, but I bet you'll get one. Another thing is to simply to have a coffee date with someone that you haven't been in touch with, or you'd like to catch up with no agenda, right? Without, I have a favor to ask, or I just want to catch up with you. I just want to hear what's what. And of course, it can be a virtual coffee date. And this is part of the pay it forward idea I was talking about earlier. Make a warm introduction between two people you think should meet. Either they have a similar background, they went to the same school, they live in the same city, whatever it is. Just you ask each of them, are you open to this? They each have to say yes, and then you can make the introduction between the two of them. But it gives you a nice feeling. It extends your network. People remember this kindness, and it reminds them that that's the sort of thing that they can do too. And it puts you sort of out in the world in a very simple way. So it's another favorite picture of mine I had to use. So I guess remember this in particular, connecting and building a network. It's always about one-to-one encounters, even though we have a group here. It's always about one-to-one encounters. It's never you and a faceless mass of versus a faceless mass of people. It's also a long game, right? It's a garden. It's not a hunting ground. And the more you practice it, the less stress you will feel about it. I think that what this picture makes me think of, despite all the differences between us, there are uh, things that we all are striving for. We all want harmonious relationships. We all want satisfying work. And we want to be inspired and be able to take it easy, in order to gain inspiration. I think that having a network for life helps us to obtain all of these things and hold on to them. So that's the formal part of my remarks. Thank you so much for having me today. And I'll switch this off and we'll go back to Q&A, I think.
Yes. Thank you very much, Karen. That was informative and interesting, and most of all, approachable. I
Oh,
think that
thank you.
anybody who has seen this, the folks in the audience, will be able to take those small steps that you've outlined. So we've had a few questions. Let me just start with what we have in the chat right now. And as you folks out there are listening to the conversation, feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will get to them. So one question that Rick asked is, what if your colleagues are too busy to meet up with you, when you talk about
Oh, yeah.
getting personal?
It's a good question. I mean, it's sad if if the mindset at the company is they're all too busy and not interested. That may not be true. I mean, maybe it is because that's the culture of the company, but ideally, I mean, everybody perhaps has lunch or perhaps has time for an end of day break. I don't know if you're working virtually or not, Rick, but um, to be able to say, is there a time, even if it's, a few weeks from now, where we could have, 20 or 30 minutes just to catch up? And here's why, here's what I'm interested in. Uh, that might work. I mean, maybe the more you say, I'd like to get to know you better, I think somebody would feel pretty Scrooge-like to say, no, I don't want to get to know you better, right? That would be a good thing. So I'm hoping that if you say, here's why I'd like to, I want to know more about you and your work and how you got here. Um, at your convenience is maybe the best you can say. And I guess there will be some people who will say, I'm just too busy, and that tells you something about them. But I hope more would say, um, yeah, sure, I can manage that in, next week or 2 weeks from now.
So I have a question. Um, in going through your book, I would characterize the approach that you talk about as a combination of small steps with serendipity, all surrounded by curiosity. Like you create small to-dos on a daily basis, like get in touch with just a few people, but then that causes you to reflect on the different other people, those people are connected to other people that you know they might be related to, and then because you've been thinking about those people, when you see something that those people might like or a person that they might be able to connect to, then you're able to keep those relationships warm. And it's sort of just it's a virtual cycle. So
Exactly.
if somebody only had like 5 minutes a day to
Hmm.
take some small steps, and you mentioned a few in the presentation, would those be the steps? Just connect to a few people, or what
Yeah.
would be a good 5 minute thing to do every day?
Yeah. I mean, it could be literally, I mean, here's a simple example. For some reason, the other night, I had a dream about one of my former colleagues. I've been in touch with him since we worked at the same company, but not, not recently. And so I mean, I literally sent him just a quick note and said, I had a dream about you last night. How are you? Let's catch up sometime. Um, so you don't have to have a dream, but it might be, I mean, literally, it might be, your friend is, or your colleague is a sports fan and their team won big or lost big. And you say, hey, sorry about that news, or, good for you. How are you? So, I mean, literally pick out three, four people that you think of that come to mind and for whatever reason. And then that's maybe who you start with.
Mhm. And so we had a question come in. Um, about how to expand a network. So what if you're
Mm.
trying to break into a new field and all of your contacts are in other areas?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there I would first of all let your friendly contacts now know of your other interests, right? Because you never know. One of them might say, "Oh, well, we've never talked about this, but I know someone at so and so," or like, "Let me introduce you to that person." So that is a fairly common phenomenon that can happen. But in general, the other advice I give is um, to let people know I'm interested in this. So that might even be post that on your LinkedIn profile, or uh, send a note to a few people and say, and look at who you're following. Are they connected to this new field? This is where it might require reaching out more to people who are strangers to say, I'm interested in this field, or industry. Um, can I talk to you more about this? Have a sort of informational interview about that. And again, people feel flattered about it, even if you don't know them, and more often than not will want to help.
Yeah, so basically don't limit yourself. I think
Don't limit
that
yourself.
a similar question, but I think of more a wider perspective. Um, so let me see where I had this question. I put it in a place that. Okay. Walter asks, I've been at my current employer for 25 years and finding it difficult to reinvent myself.
Mm.
Any suggestions?
Well, I would say, why are you reinventing yourself? What do you need to do that for? If it's to figure out a new field or a new area of interest, then you don't say, Walter, if it's within the current job or you're thinking about changing your job, but whatever pursuits you have outside of work, if they're leading to your new interest, that's where you make some different connections, whether it's that you're taking classes or doing just your own exploring, and learning more about it and connecting to people who know about that. But you don't necessarily have to reinvent yourself only because of the 25-year mark. It's more about where your interests are taking you, and then finding simpatico people in new areas that you want to try. You may not have decided on one thing or another, but just in your travels of exploring.
So the next question is, Velma says, your style is so conversational and non-threatening. Networking or connecting seems to require a particular personality type. In your opinion, is it simply a matter of being comfortable with communicating with other people? Can you suggest some ways of strengthening this desirable character trait?
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I have to say, the original subtitle of my book was, an introvert's guide to networking, because I am an introvert. I have to, and that means, by the way, not shy. It means that you kind of have to re-energize and, you know, draw strength after a day out in the world with people, with some quiet time and on your own to sort of process and think through what's going on, and think through, what you're doing and why you're doing it and all that. And but it doesn't really make a difference. And I guess I am a social introvert. I've read that such a thing exists, and that I am interested in. I'm curious about people. I like hearing people's stories, and so that, I think, has helped me be more conversational with people. I can't do it all day and all night. I find that if I have maybe more than two Zoom calls in a day, I'm kind of spent. But in any case, I guess it's just, in a way, in a funny way, making small talk with people um, is good practice for being able to just have it, interesting, if very short, conversations where you might have just a few words. That may be a way to practice it, to feel more comfortable. But I'd say the other thing is, everybody feels the same. Everybody feels, uh, wants to make a connection, wants to have a moment of serendipity, wants to find out kind of a surprising new thing and to have their own story to tell. So the more you can think of us all being in that sense, a level playing field, rather than again that image of all the penguins who are brown and then the one who stands out. It's mostly not like that. It's mostly that we're all uh, kind of feeling the same, just not necessarily at the same moments, but just people do want to help each other and do want to sort of have communion with each other about the things that connect us.
This is actually this is a perfect segue to the next question. You were talking about small talk and connection, and Emerald asks, great name by the way. My question is how to make small talk to a room of people that you don't know, and what do you gain by small talk?
Yeah. Small talk, it really is a sort of social lubricant. So I would caution, I don't know what the situation is where you'd have to make small talk to a whole room at once. I'm hoping it's one-to-one
Yeah,
conversations
yeah.
that you're having.
Just a
Uh,
room full of people that are there. You walk in, and it's like, whoa, everybody's here.
yeah, right. And I have to say, when I'm in those situations, at a conference, for example, I mean, I look for either someone I might already know, uh, which is obviously an easy way to go. And if I really don't know anybody, the small talk would be, waiting at the coffee bar or next to someone you're sitting next to at the for a presentation or something. What brings you here today? Or was that talk interesting to you? What are you? How did you, find your way to the conference? What field are you in? I mean, those kind of questions just start opening up a little bit of conversation. Doesn't have to go very far, but then you feel like, oh yeah, okay, I have a sense now of why they're here, and that's interesting. And sometimes it leads to, can we connect and follow up later because I want to talk more about this. That's great too. That's not the norm probably out of those kind of group events, but where you can simply talk about what's going on right around you. And another thing, I mean, that is a kind of small talk. And in a sort of broader situation that doesn't have a professional tie-in, honestly, talking about the weather or traffic or sports, like those are kind of universal small talk type things that signal to other people, hey, I'm a friendly human and I'm just, kind of out here in the world like you. And it gives a little bit of grounding to something that can just be a pleasant moment. But anyway, back to the conference room. Sometimes it's literally like, just talk about the thing that's happening at the moment that brings you there together.
So it's the small talk lowest common denominator, but
Exactly.
it breaks that barrier, the gap of total strangers.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the small talk portion of your book was one that I particularly was the one that I appreciated because I'm among pretty much everybody who feels like small talk is not
I
fun.
before the book, I would have said that too about myself, but I see that it just adds a little bit of uh, just a little lubrication to the moment. That's all. That's the best way I know to say
Mhm.
it. It's just a little bit of, hey, we're both humans here connecting for a minute.
It really it's nice to think about it. Just really reframe something that's not that pleasant,
Yeah,
but actually not that bad either.
yeah.
So here's a question from Diana. Who can we contact or connect with after being a stay-at-home parent for many years and not really knowing anyone in the professional setting anymore?
Right. So then I would ask the question back. So what are you looking to get into? What kind of field? What kind of organization or company? That's where you start to make your first connections with people, is people who are in the area that you're interested in, where you're looking to get back into the swing of things on the work side. Um, and again, people will be happy to tell you, this is what I've learned, this is what I know. I expect there are also groups, probably online groups for other, stay-at-home parents who are looking at this, and that can be a good source of support. for getting back, and just sort of sharing that kind of information. Or even if you know other people who are doing this, I've started a couple of just informal support groups myself over time, just simply when for people who are working independently and who are consultants, because that can be a lonely arena. So I've just formed my own group. But if you don't know anybody, I personally, I think there would be some good online groups for support. And then the other part would be you're following the whatever professional interest you may have and aiming to get to know people in those fields.
And Elizabeth in the comments made a great suggestion. She found that alumni groups or networks are also not a good place to find connections.
Exactly. And you're building on some common ground.
Yeah, it comes
Just
back to the small talk
yeah.
because you don't have to you would know your people.
Yeah, and even if you don't, by the way, that I went to a small college in Ohio for undergrad, and believe me, I mean, I graduated many years ago, but through LinkedIn, some much younger graduates found me simply because I'd been to that same college that they had been to. And so now I'm in touch with them, and they've invited me to do kind of alumni events, and they've asked me for job advice, and then I'm connected to them in a way I would never have been otherwise. And it's quite different than my own college friends, who of course are my age. So those alumni networks can be really interesting.
Here's a question it's a really important question, especially these days. Um, so the person asked, they expressed their concerns about privacy or security on LinkedIn, and I think probably other social networks also,
Hmm.
in folks who might twist your professional outreach into a personal inquiry. For example, this person says, I would never say to someone, nor would I welcome them saying to me, I had a dream about you. They hesitate to
Not
even
to a
say, I've
stranger,
been
no.
thinking about you, for fears, that it could lead to boundary or role transgressions or, just kind of make
Yeah.
somebody feel uncomfortable.
Well, I'm only doing that to someone I already know and have good rapport with. You're not doing that to strangers, first of all.
Yeah.
So that's not a if that did happen, I would be concerned not about privacy, but just about appropriateness.
Mhm.
But no. If I say to someone, "Hey, I've been thinking about you," it's because I already know them and know them well enough to say that, have an acquaintance, a friendly acquaintance with them. So no, you're not doing that with people that you don't know. With people you don't know, I would not worry about LinkedIn as a platform for this kind of thing. First of all, remember you only have to put out on LinkedIn, on your profile or in your messages, what you want to say, how much you want to say. And by the way, LinkedIn has an interesting feature that I think is very smart. If you're updating your profile and your resume and your chronology of jobs and so on, there's a default switch that I think is off to let other people know about changes you've made to your profile. And so that doesn't then trigger you know, so and so is, has a new title or has a, something else has changed because you might not want that attention if you're preparing, for example, to find a new job or go into a new field or whatever. So, and in short, I think LinkedIn is fine, and you're not saying to a stranger the same thing you would say to someone you're already acquainted with.
And then on top of that, I would encourage if somebody connects with you on any kind of social network and is weird and inappropriate, block that
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
think almost every social network these days has a very easy way to just, and then they don't see you at
Yep,
all anymore. They can't connect with
yep,
you. Don't even, I mean, some people think about it and maybe this person, no, if they're being weird, just block them.
yes.
It's not even worth it. So I had a question about, a lot of our audience for some work-ready events tends to be older adults, and uh, this is an audience that you identify with and talk to. In your book, you define older adults as 50 plus. What advice do you have for older folks that want to expand their network but are afraid of ageism? I have another question about older adults after this one, but um, how do you help what advice do you have for people who want to get over ageism?
Well, they can't get over it by themselves, sadly, because other people may feel ageist towards them. But I mean, it all depends on what you're looking to do. If it's simply to do, well, not simply, if the goal is I want to find a new field or a new job or opportunity, um, I mean, my best advice is put yourself out there. Now, I will say years ago, I took the dates of my college education off of my LinkedIn profile. It doesn't really matter because I also quit dyeing my hair a long time ago. So um, to put yourself out there and say, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'm good in, it helps to be current in, digital tools and so on. Uh, that's the best that you can do. There are definitely people and places that will just silently rule you out. That's not the same as meeting new people and connecting with people to talk about opportunities or new fields of interest, or to just simply expand your network in ways that will give you some more interesting and valuable contacts. Again, one to one makes a big difference. It's a little different on the job hunt. I recognize that. um, and that's an unfortunate thing that we just have to keep chipping away at. But that's not something one person can solve. But the idea of just being yourself and being clear and friendly and personable with other people, the age can drop away. I mean, maybe I've been lucky that I worked in tech for so long where virtually everybody was younger than me, but people didn't kind of don't think about, I know I have many younger friends who just don't think about my age. Now, they already know me, that's true. But I think I was lucky in that I've had a long career in tech, so I wasn't a newcomer to it. Um, and that's a hard thing to overcome, and you'll never get acknowledgement of it. It's rare that somebody would say, no, you're too old for the job. Rare. It's very hard to prove. But I'd say on a one-to-one basis, you can keep making inroads and contacts with people who are open-minded and curious.
Absolutely. And so, in the same vein, actually, again, you sort of moved into the next question that I was thinking of, and that was, um, I appreciated in your book the descriptions and strategies related to being the older person in the various tech companies that you worked for, which
Hmm.
you tend to be known as, young and hip and all the
Yeah,
kind that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And the commonality among the strategies, it seems to me, is that you've remained authentic to yourself rather than sort of attempt to take on this culture that may not connect with you personally. I'm thinking of a part where you talked about where you're not trying to like match, story for story
right,
with younger folks having wild nights
right.
or with the wildest weekend or something.
Yeah.
Um, can you share some of the strategies for remaining authentic, and connecting with people authentically in a work culture that may not necessarily reflect where you are in life?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm a friendly person. I'm curious about other people, but I knew always in my tech career didn't even start till I was 35. And so I knew, the minute I, started working at companies, and one of the early ones I did work at in the early years was Google, was, I wasn't going to have a lot in common personally. Let's try and find the things we could find in common. And because the fact is we have to work together. So I just, understood that it's not about, when someone says, how was your weekend? You don't have to, you know, tell them I sorted my Reader's Digest collection. And, and they may not tell you very much either, but it's more about what the commonalities are and what the common interests are. And I have to say, uh, from and so I was never interested in keeping up with them. And so where there are social events, for example, after work, uh, you know, some of the hardier players would go out for drinks after. And I knew myself well enough to know, what, I'm a morning person. I'm gonna go home now, and I'll be back at the office early. That's who I am. I'm not doing that. I'm not keen on the karaoke night or whatever. But these things are all in the ancient past, I know, before the pandemic. But um, I just, I was more interested in the spotlight being on. I'm curious about people and sort of how they were growing up, how they were finding things, having their assumptions and experiences being quite different than mine. I was just interested in watching that all unfold. And at the same time, helpful and cooperative as I could be, but not always that personal. Um, I didn't mind people knowing my age, but I didn't broadcast it for a long time in my corporate years. Not that I would hide it, but it just wasn't. I didn't make a big deal out of it because I thought if people do that, they'd immediately start thinking of me in relation to their parents, and I didn't want that to happen either. But one to one, if I was talking to someone I knew and trusted and liked, I had no problem with that.
Thank you for that. And I think curiosity also seems to play
Yeah,
a role
yeah,
here. I mean, I mentioned curiosity. The curiosity surrounds the whole approach,
yes,
and I think you just mentioned it also now that you're curious about other people's
yeah,
what people are doing, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do the same things.
that's right. That's right.
So let me see. Let me see if we have any other questions from the audience. I had another question for you. I was curious about you had 4 quotes on your business cards.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and I like the Eleanor Roosevelt quote that you had. Happiness is not a goal, it is a byproduct. I was curious why you chose that quote to include as one of the 4 quotes.
I'm first of all, I'm a big Eleanor Roosevelt fan, so that was one reason. But I always thought that was interesting because I'm not by nature a person who's sort of happy-go-lucky. I mean, I'm thoughtful and I'm contented, but I'm not, happy for happy's sake. I guess that was never the goal for me, and so I that really resonated with me that when you're doing things that have meaning to you or that are satisfying or peaceful or whatever, that's how happiness comes, not I'm setting out to be happy. I guess that was the way I made the distinction. Uh, and the idea that Eleanor Roosevelt said it, who herself had a quite unhappy childhood, struck me because she ended up having quite a remarkable life. And I think there was happiness in it.
Yeah, she really did. And so, folks, we still have a little bit of time. So if you have questions out there and they're just at the tip of your tongue or in the back of your mind, bring them to the front and put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be happy to get to them. And I do have a question from Joseph. He asks, is it better to grow a larger, looser network or a smaller, stronger network?
I don't think there's a either or situation here, uh, Joseph. I think it's really. I mean, you could even have both for that matter. I mean, I have people I'm closer to and rely on more and talk to more frequently, and then there's a sort of broader network of people that are sort of what I call this kind of friendly web of contacts and acquaintances. Perhaps I think we all have that to some degree, so I don't know that it's wise to kind of plan that way. I think it's going to be more what unfolds for you. Some people are happy and comfortable having a smaller kind of trusted group and don't go beyond that for a variety of reasons. And other people like knowing a lot of people. I guess I'm in that category, but I still rely on a smaller subset for what I call my brain trust.
So I don't have any more questions from the audience, but I did want to ask if people wanted to connect with you,
Uh-huh.
how would you recommend they do that?
Well, I am on Twitter, as you noted, KVox, KVOX. I'm on LinkedIn just with my name, Karen Wickery, and I have a website that is also my name.
Sounds good. And the book is Taking the Work Out of Networking. And I'm sure you can get it at Amazon, all the online stores, bookstores, and also through the library. We
And
have it
any fine
available.
library.
Any fine library. We have it at a bunch of our library locations, and also we have it online as part of the Overdrive list. So you can get it as an ebook, as an audiobook, and you read the audiobook.
Yes, I do. That was a fantastic experience.
It doesn't, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. It doesn't always happen that the author reads the audiobooks, and so it's always a little bit of a special delight when it's actually the author.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, let me see. I think I may have had something else come in here before we go. Okay. Um, let's look. A lot of people are thankful about what you're
Oh,
sharing
nice.
here. Um, what do you think about paying to join professional associations to make professional connections that become personable over time or be professionally beneficial?
Well, I mean, it might be fine depending on the profession, right? I mean, you can certainly make contacts you like in a professional organization, a trade association or whatnot. That may be the source of some wonderful friendships for you. So, but it has to be tied to a field or a specialty or an interest, not just, you know, business professionals or something. If it's too broad, it's going to be, you might make contacts there, but I'm not sure it's necessarily worth the money to buy into that simply to make contacts. It's to me more important that they have common interest about something, uh, a professional interest as opposed to a business network interest.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. That way you can keep it interesting for yourself too. I think it's a.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And then one final thing before because I don't have any questions of the audience, but in looking in reading the book, something else that struck me is that you really look at going to events and conferences, and in general, just maintain your work in a strategic way. So I particularly like the example where you come into an event with a goal of talking to X amount of people, making a round in the room, and and then basically leaving whenever you
Yeah.
accomplish that and whenever you feel that's right. Um, was it always like that for you, or did you at some point decide to give yourself permission to cut it off and leave?
Yes,
Um,
I think I had to, and I got this idea actually from my friend Hunter Walk, who I quote in the book. He's a
mm,
venture capitalist who's actually an introvert. And so for him, you can imagine the people that swarm him at events and always want to talk to him. And so he more explicitly than I have, but he basically was feeling like a failure at all these events because he wasn't meeting everybody in the room or at the conference. And then he realized, but it stressed him out, right? So then he realized, you know what, if I come away with two or three, things to follow up with, that's a win. Or have, one good conversation. So I don't put a number on it, but it's more like, as long as I'm sort of interested and engaged and have energy. But when it comes to, the after parties or the evening events or the, sort of follow on things, I'm not the last one to leave the cocktail party at the end of the conference. I just, if I'm spent, I'm spent. And so I'll leave. But I do try while I'm there to, you know, connect with a handful of people just, and if some follow-up comes out of it, that's awesome.
Thank you. You also quote Turgenev in the book, which I appreciated as a fan of Russian literature. So
Yes.
there's a lot of good quotes in the book, and a lot of them are also written by you. So thank you.
Thank you. I've really
Um,
enjoyed this. Thank you so much for having me.
sure, and thank you for sharing the information. And all the folks out there, thank you for sticking with us. Good afternoon, good luck, and see you again.